Okay, so I love running musical experiments. In fact, some might say I'm even a little bit obsessed. But if all my efforts making YouTube videos week after week have come to nothing, except for one thing, I want my legacy to be helping people to understand what really makes a drummer good. It's not necessarily chops. But on the other side, chops don't necessarily make you unmusical. It's sometimes tough to convince people there's more to a great drummer than what they perceive.
Chops, talent, it's his chops. He's born with it. He's really fast.
And it's no wonder, because I used to feel the same way.
Speed of his hands. You can't teach that.
Until a few real-world experiences convinced me otherwise. And I want you, the viewer, to have that same experience. If you're not perceiving the hidden web of things that separates good drummers from novices, I want to show it to you. And so do these guys. Stay tuned. So last year I published a video called 5 Subtle Ways Pros Can Tell If a Drummer's Legit. In that video I proposed that truly good drummers were better than novices in 5 subtle ways I didn't see when I first started playing, when I assumed it was just chops. Kit control. To put it bluntly, know how when you go into a drum store and sit down on an unfamiliar kit, your timing and feel and playing can be off just because things are different heights and the kick pedal has a different spring tension, so your playing suffers a little bit. Great drummers don't have this ability to learn music quickly, but to hobbyist musicians, or those just starting out, or even people in some high school and college situations, it's not obvious just how big the gulf is between the way they learn music and the way the pros do it. Lock up. If it feels good to me, it sounds good. Not necessarily. Hitting figures without losing the groove, just because you can play cool grooves by yourself in the practice room, doesn't mean you'll be able to hit figures against them while playing with a band. And keeping the one, even in complex music. It's a survival instinct, honed from thousands of hours of hanging on for dear life during difficult tunes. Clearly I struck a nerve because the video got way more views than my humble little channel usually gets. But as more and more strangers watched the video, I began to get comments like this. I'm sorry, but as a drummer, I pretty much disagree with all points in this video. Man, you gotta relax. Music is about energy, and you're over here being critical of people expressing themselves. Music school to a T. There's no legit musician. Whatever you play is whatever you want to play. Or we can just keep playing drums and stop overthinking things. Bad ones invent vague and obscure ways to tell if they're good or not. So a lot of people disagreed. A lot of people resented being told that there's a hierarchy and the things they're not perceiving could sink their chances of getting a gig. I was inventing vague and obscure ways to differentiate people. I get it, especially because I felt the same way when I was in college. Man, what are all these arbitrary hoops I'm supposed to jump through? Playing's supposed to be fun. You guys are a drag. So for a while after that video, I'd given up on trying to convince people that the difference between beginners and good drummers was anything other than
chops, talent, it's his chops.
I despaired at my inability to grab people by the hand and lead them across that conceptual chasm that I'd crossed. If only there was a way to prove to people there's more than meets the eye when it comes to what makes a good drummer. To show them instead of just telling them. To run a controlled experiment. Then I discovered beginner covers on YouTube. Like this group of novices playing Nate Smith's Skip Step. And I want to be careful here because I'm not trying to pick on or discourage up-and-comers. These folks, if they keep at it, will eventually likely sound as good as Nate and his cohort. All it takes is time. Nor am I saying I'm anything special, just that I perceive some things. Maybe you see them too. If you do, great. If not, let me show them to you. Okay, with that disclaimer out of the way, let's continue this illustration. So here's an excellent group of novices doing a bang-up job of covering Nate Smith's Skip Step. And here's the original. Cover. Original. So right away you can hear the difference, right? Lockup, kit control, feel, or Can you? Bro, how can you say one's better than the other when the Tiny Desk has better mics and a better mix? Clearly that's doing most of the work to make it sound better. Hey, you're back! I missed that guy. But he's correct that that's the first objection I'd usually get when sharing these comparisons side by side. And it mirrored my own experience when I was coming up. I'd play the kit in combo class and sound Then I'd listen to Jamie Ryan play on stage with the mic setup, and of course he'd sound better. It's mostly the mix, right? But we're running controlled experiments, right? How would we design an experiment to test whether good drummers were really better than novices in ways other than chops, or whether it was just the mix? We'd have to find shitty recordings of those good drummers playing and compare them to recordings of the novices. Here's one of my favorites. Here's a novice group doing a great job of covering Adam Rogers' Rumples. And here's Adam, Nate, Chris Potter, and Craig Taborn playing it. So clearly it's the mix, right? Until you find this recording. This is obviously a bootleg somebody made on his iPhone and probably risked getting kicked out of the venue. And dude, we salute you. But seriously, buy their actual record. But we salute you. Anyway, what differences do we hear between the two recordings? Time or timing, feel, kid control, lockup, which means the band is playing together more tightly, all the stuff I've been saying. So, case closed, right? But bro, you can't compare these two clips because obviously Nate Smith is playing with pros. If he were playing with these novices, he wouldn't sound so good. And so now we arrive at the most recent objection I've been getting. It's impossible to separate the drummer from the band. A novice band will make even a good drummer sound worse, right? Well, there's a way to test that. If we were running an experiment, we'd want to see clips of good drummers playing with novice bands, and we'd want to look for two things. First, can you still tell if the drummer is good, or does the band drag him or her down? Second, does the drummer actually make the band sound better? I got countless opportunities to run this experiment in high school and college when we'd have great drummers sitting in with us. We'd rehearse with the group, then somebody like Billy Kilson would sit in. If only there were YouTube clips of great drummers sitting in with novice bands. Just a sec, I'm getting a message. He said, what? No, they can't sue us for that. I didn't even... Okay, what am I supposed to do with that many rutabagas? Oh, sorry. He told me there are YouTube clips. Like this one. This is Kendrick Scott playing his original tune with a very competent college band, who someday are going to be amazing and have more gigs than I do, if they don't already. But who, as of the moment this was recorded, are understandably not John Ellis, Joe Infinity Sanders, Mike Moreno, and Taylor Agstein. At least not yet. Anyway, if the haters were correct, we'd expect not to be able to tell Kendrick's any good, right? Well, obviously he still sounds good. Those things I've been shouting from the rooftops are still in effect, and the band doesn't really obscure it. Time, feel, lockup, kid control, keeping the one. Let's cut that for a second. The other experiment we can run, which is not going to be perfect, is to see whether Kendrick being there makes the band sound better. Let's skip ahead a bit. I'd say the answer to that question is a hard yes. I'd pay money to see these guys with Kendrick. I can't stop tapping my foot. There are all the intangibles I remember from great drummers sitting in too. Everybody's on their game. What's that you say? You're sick of all this jazz and fusion? You want a rock example too? So these are a little hard to find. That's why I made a post on my channel. Luckily, somebody came through with this. It's Danny Carey of Tool sitting in on a live gig. Now, a couple of caveats. These aren't students, so I'm sure they sound decent even without Danny. But be that as it may, you can see how Danny enhances the performance. Even, nay, especially with the iPhone audio. Time, lockup, kick control, probably learning the tune quickly, etc. So does this mean I rest my case? Well, probably not. Some people will come forward with even more caveats. And I suspect I'll be on this mission for quite a while. But being the guy yelling, hey, there are subtle reasons why good drummers are good, and if you learn them, you can kind of shortcut the whole not being good thing. There are worse things to be. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this lesson and/or I've convinced you even a little bit that there might be more to becoming great at drums than chops, even though chops are part of it, I encourage you to check out my courses, the coaching course, the practice course, and the solo course, which alternately are like studying with me for like 3 to 6 months for around the price of a single lesson. But we only open them up a few times a year, and we only open them to people on my mailing list. And if you'd like to get on the mailing list, I've got something else for you, a bribe. I'll send you 3 free videos that'll make your playing better in the next 3 weeks than it's gotten in the last 6 months. These are 3 videos I do not share on YouTube. Just click the link below the player, enter your email address in on the next page, and you'll be subscribed. Dudes, thanks so much for watching. Always appreciate it. Always have fun doing these. See you in the future. Is it time to reveal my skibbity bippity bops? Skibbity bop, skibbity bippity bop, skibbity bop bop, skibbity bippity bip, bip skibbity bip 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 skibbity bip bip. It's my secret weapon.